Ooh, this is exotic. Muscle Cat Media. Nice. Cultural.
Welcome back to the Expats for another week, as I think we're all getting over a long weekend. And I always forget how long the Easter long weekend feels, because it feels like the last time that I was actually doing real actual work was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was in fact only 4 days. But we fronted up after a big long weekend and a big weekend of baseball. If you haven't already done so, do like and subscribe to the podcast, and also check out baseballexpats.com. Bookmark it, put it on the home screen of your phone. I don't know, whatever the kids are doing nowadays with websites. But do visit. You can help us out by visiting baseballexpats.com. Speaking of big weekends, two fellas that I know would have just been jam-packed with stuff to do, Eric and Spoon. I'm going to switch it up and start with Spoon this week, because Eric, you always get first word. Spoon, how was your weekend?
My weekend was good, mate. Lots of sport to watch, which was capped off by cracking games in both codes yesterday. The racing over the weekend was good. The baseball was great, albeit the times weren't the daylight saving switch here in Australia. We now have to wake up an hour earlier to watch the early slate, but that's okay. Some of us are sickos and we'll do that anyway.
And some of us have the joy of being in a text thread with you, which means that whether we want to be awake talking about baseball or not, we are, because Spoon's sending text messages through at 6:30 in the morning about
morning headlines.
Only sickos would care about, and guys that no one else has heard of, or at least, i.e. Shane McClanahan wouldn't have heard of 2 months ago or forgotten about. And we will get to that. Eric, I trust that you had a nice long weekend as well, my friend.
I did, but I agree with this group text thing from Spoon. I mean, I love them, but like I woke up, I'm not a late riser. Like on a long weekend, I was waking up at like 6:45, 6:30 in that range, and the Jays were on at 3:30 in the morning. So I wasn't waking up early to watch it, but you can watch Sportsnet 360's got the Jays in 30, and then on MLB.com, you can watch condensed, or you can just watch the full match replay, which I intended to do. On the first days, I got caught out because I think Spoon texted like Hoffman or something like that. And I think it was like a blown save at 6:45 in the morning. So I was like, I'll just skip ahead to when Hoffman comes in. And then I knew what was going to happen. And then anytime I see a message at like 6:40 in the morning, I'm just going to open this after I will catch up on the Jays. But man, I'm pissed I did it, because what a waste of time it was watching the Blue Jays. My goodness.
And look, I think we will get to that. And just before we came on air, I mean, you said it's easy to be a bad team when half your team is injured, and that certainly is the case. But I do want to take your temperature, as we did last week, on where the Jays are, because I certainly think that you would think that they'd be in a better position than a 4-6 team after 10 games, considering the opponents that they did play. But just on the text thread thing, look, I like it, because I think
I do too.
I wake up and I don't have to read anything. I just need to read Spoon's reactions. Like, the longer you know Spoon, you tend to know what 1- and 2-word sentences mean without even going into any detail. It's good.
Jeff Hoffman wasn't
as efficient as you can.
Yeah, he just threw an immaculate inning to save the game. No.
It's about as efficient as you can get in terms of spreading the news. We should probably start one of those WhatsApp broadcast groups or Instagram broadcast groups, just so the folks can get in tune with what Spoon is sending to us on a daily basis, oftentimes while we're still sleeping. But look, before we talk about what's going on in Major League Baseball, and there's plenty to get to. I know we want to talk about some surprise teams and some teams and players potentially that we're eyeing, and some guys that maybe we're worried about, some teams we're worried about early. But Eric, you had tended to do in the last couple of years, have been keeping an eye on the international beat, which is something that we vow to continue doing on this show for those, that are interested in Major League Baseball, but also interested in what else might be going on around the world of baseball. There's a lot of baseball leagues that have started up in the last week or so. So what have you had your eye on, and sort of what have you had your finger on the pulse of in terms of the international game?
Well, look, if you guys want to know who's in first place and last place and batting out, like anybody can go and Google KBO batting average leaders or look at the standings, whatever it is. That's cool. So I thought I'd just go around the table really quickly and give you like a headline from each of the leagues that like maybe would be like a talking point if you were in that circle. I've been reading a lot of writers that are covering all of these leagues. I've been using the old Translate app. I've been using a few different tools to follow along. And Japan is being particularly interesting. So, you guys want to start there? Let's do it. All right. So I think the story of the year so far, we're only a week in, is the Yakult Swallows, their name is. They're based out of Tokyo, and that's Munetaki Murakami's old team. And they're significant because they were terrible. Well, they always seem to be terrible. They're just not historically a good team the last few years, but last year they were dead last by a bit of a margin. And this year they kind of got off to a cool start. So it took all of like 3 days for there to be a no-hitter in the NPB this year. And this guy's name is Haruki Hosono. He's 24 years old. He had never thrown a complete game in his life, as a prospect, in the minor leagues, in the NPB. And he went 9 innings, no hits, 1 walk, 12 strikeouts on 128 pitches with 19 whiffs. Like, it was awesome. And he was the first round pick. They set a record for having multiple home runs in each of their first 4 games. And they're 7-1, and they're the first team to have 12 homers through 4 games this year in the NPB. So they're hitting the long ball, and everyone's kind of shocked by it for your FYI because Munetaki's gone, right? Like, he was their star player. He's left to go to the promised land of the Chicago White Sox, who are unbeatable. Like, I don't know if they'll ever lose again after what I saw on the weekend, but that's the big story over there is the Yakult Swallows are 7-1, and the Bay Stars, who everybody thought would be contenders, have started the year 2-7, like the Toronto Blue Jays, Boston Red Sox realm. So yeah, there's your big update from Japan. Haruki Hosono, fellows, remember that name. I thought that was a pretty cool story from him with the no-hitter.
Did you say 128 pitches?
128 pitches. 1 hit.
How old is this guy?
24. He'd never thrown a complete game ever before. No hitter.
What do you reckon the most amount of pitches thrown by a single player in Major League Baseball was last year?
Maybe 115?
Yeah, 115. Logan Webb would be my guess.
Are you looking that
up while you're chatting? Because I venture to say that, I mean, we're a week into the NPB season, and we've already seen a pitching performance. And I mean, this does tend to happen in Japan a lot more than it happens in the United States, just the way that they tend to construct rosters, and, those guys don't tend to throw as hard, so the risk of injury maybe isn't as much, and they can throw 10-15% more pitches than what guys in the U.S. are doing nowadays. But 128 pitches
Gavin Williams
is absurd.
Gavin Williams threw 126 last year for Cleveland. What on earth? Looks like he was 1 out away.
I don't know if I would guess that.
Either a perfect game or a no-hitter or something, so I guess they were letting him go longer. Justin Verlander threw 121 pitches in 5 innings, but for the Giants, that seems like malpractice.
Yeah.
He struck out 10 and walked 4. What on earth?
They should get an investigation for that.
All of these are like 7 or 8 inning performances where obviously they were trying to give the guy a complete game. Justin Verlander threw 5 innings, 121 pitches. Crazy.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, it was a cool story, right? 24 years old. He's been a prospect, but not a superstar. So it's cool. I think if you're a Swallows fan, you'd be absolutely pumped up. Over in Korea, I mean, the KT Wiz, they were out of nowhere, got off to a 5-0 start. But do you remember that they were interesting? I mean, they're 6-3 now. Maybe they've tailored it off a bit. SSG Landers are in first. But the one that caught my eye was, do you remember Sam Hilliard?
Was he a Colorado Rocky?
Yeah, for like 5 or 6 years. He has gone over to the KBO this year, and he is absolutely shredding and playing a few different positions. Sam Hilliard's pretty fun to watch. Few Aussies to watch in there, too. That's why I've been paying attention on Soup Live. Like Jared Dale, sitting 333 through the first 8 games from Melbourne, and people seem to really like him. Everyone's praising his song. Like, people have wrote him a song that they sing and play for him every time he's up for bat. But the interesting thing about the KBO is they are experiencing record viewership. They are receiving record attendance at any point of this league's history, and it's always been pretty big in Korea. But games are now 3 hours and 20 minutes long, which is kind of alternative to the MLB school of thought. And on top of that, they've gone automated everything, right? The ABS, they just have that headpiece in with the strike zone. So I'm curious to see what you guys think there. Like, obviously, there is that narrative in MLB that games need to be shorter, they need to be quicker, shorter attention spans. But baseball is kicking off in Korea right now, where like people can't get tickets. They've had to put foreign bans on things. Women are playing a big role in this as well. Like there's a lot of women going to games, but games are 3 hours and 20 minutes long in Korea.
Why are they longer if they've automated so much? Is there no pitch clock?
No pitch clock. A
Yep.
lot of changes, some breaks between innings. There's generally pretty offensive games. Like pitching has never been like a dominant standpoint in Korean baseball. They've always been able to hit, but yeah, it's bizarre. Like I just try to make the things correlate, but hey, if it's getting more popular, it's getting more popular. Rolsey, any experience with Korean baseball?
Well, I do wonder if their performance, albeit not the performance that they had in the quarterfinal of the World Baseball Classic, that notwithstanding, going to Miami and then getting destroyed by the Dominican Republic, it wouldn't have mattered which team played the DR, I don't think, in the quarterfinals. But remember whenever they beat Australia or scored that extra run in the 9th inning, and their players were just crying because I feel like there's been a big weight, not only on national team players within Korea, but maybe Korean fans as well, to go, are we as prominent a baseball playing nation as we think we are? And I think maybe they were justified in their thought process of thinking that whenever they got to the quarterfinal of a World Baseball Classic. And that's what a tournament like that can do, right? Because they haven't performed well in international tournaments at the senior level for the last 5 years. It's almost as though the fan bases potentially have gotten around that and have become really buoyed by what Korea has done.
Yeah, Korean baseball has always been interesting to me too, because you've and Rolsey and I have had this discussion a number of times. Because I mean, you go to an ABL game, right, and it is a good quality baseball game, right? Like it is an enjoyable one to watch. Even local club ball Division I, like they obviously, you know, they're playing once a week, so there's going to be mistakes and errors. They have full-time jobs. But Aussies are such athletes that you got to wonder that if you were to take a bunch of Australian baseballers and say, hey, play 140 games in a season in front of 20,000 people and we'll pay you each $500,000 to do so, how good Australia would be as a baseball nation, right? Like, obviously the infrastructure is there, but I mean, Aussies are just such great athletes, so competitive that I really do think that if we had the same system as Korea, we would be like a top 3 baseball country in the world, hands down. It would probably make sense. The last one, though, I'll give you, though, CPBL. That's the Taiwanese league, dude. It's weird. Everyone's got 4 wins except for the brothers. They've got 1 win. But it was cool. The Rakuten Monkeys walked it off in the 9th inning, and it was a weird way. So it was the first time in the CPBL 37 years of opening games that a game ended with a bases loaded, hit by pitch, walk-off win. So I thought that was a funny way to start a season and a first that has happened in international baseball. So there's your headlines for you. I think you go with Haruki Hosono's no-hitter in Japan, the Sam Hilliard tearing it up, and the KT Wiz off to an unexpected big start in front of long games and big crowds, and a bases-loaded walk-off hit by pitch in a strange way to start things over in Taiwan. So there it is around the world. There's lots of international events coming up this year on the calendar year. Next week, I'll be at the Women's National Championships in Australia, and women's baseball is on the rise too, right? There's that Pro League happening in the States this year. This is a World Cup year. We'll be covering that on Expats because Rolsey and I will both be covering the Women's World Cup in a variety of different roles. But yeah, international baseball is taken off and didn't want to let the momentum die after the WBC.
No, I think it's a good call. I mean, it's a good one to call out. And yeah, just to finish that point on Korea, I think that is the reason why the World Baseball Classic is so important, right? Because maybe we are seeing fans buoyed. And, you know, the enthusiasm is ratcheted up that 10, 15, 20% because of what Korea was able to do as a baseball playing nation. And that could be why viewership is up as much as it is in Korea. Well, look, if we turn our attention to Major League Baseball, it's so hard not to overreact. And I think we do this every single year. But there's a lot of things that we could overreact to. Spoon, is there a way where you can sort of amalgamate your feelings and any teams or players that you have an eye on, either for good or bad reasons, through the first couple of weeks?
There are a couple of teams preseason that I did not like at all, and so far they've proven me right. And they would be the San Francisco Giants and the Boston Red Sox. The Giants are 3-8, the Red Sox are 2-8. But it's not just the record; it's like the vibes, it's the way they're doing it. The team that's meant to be, the Giants was meant to be a really good lineup hitting wise that was probably going to be let down by pitching, but the team just isn't hitting at all. And I don't see where that's going to suddenly turn around from. I mean, they finally scored 4 runs today against the Phillies, and then the Phillies just tacked 4 straight back on and beat them. So these were teams I didn't have anywhere in the conversation to win their division, but they were right in the market, or at least the Red Sox were for the East. The Giants were in that market to finish second for the NL West, which, we kind of talked about as a field minus Dodgers market. So yeah, pretty low on both teams early. Maybe one more that's interesting is in the Central. We talked about the Cubs being probably the best favorite for a division outside of the Dodgers. They're currently last in the Central, and the Brewers have started 8-2, and they look brilliant. So a long way to go, obviously. But I think with those division watches, when there's a gap starting to grow early, and the team is going to be consistent throughout the year, I think the Cubs would probably be a bit more worried than anyone. And the Red Sox have a lot of work to do.
I agree. The Red Sox look awful. Awful. But you can't really you can only rule out a couple teams pretty early on in the season, right? Like, you make a good point. It is easy to overreact. And the Jays are a class case of that, right? Like, they're injury riddled. They just lost to some pretty bad teams on the road. But the season doesn't really start until you can even call it the trade deadline, right? Like, look at the Jays last year. The Jays in April last year lost 8 of 9 games at one point. At one point during the season, they were 4 games under 500. They were like 16-20. They weren't above 500 until game number 58 of the regular season last year. They played some pretty bad baseball last year, and then the Jays went on this run, right? Like, they played really good baseball. They got really hot in June. So every team needs to get hot and then just tread water. That's really all a baseball season is like, can you play 500 ball and then get hot at one point and propel yourself to the playoffs? Like, look at the Diamondbacks last year. Like, they never really got going. They were kind of bad for most of the year, but they were never out of it. It was always the biggest next 10 games of the season. And then they were never terrible. It was always like, if they go 7-3 in this very gettable stretch, they're going to be in the mix. And they would go like 5-5. And you'd be like, all right, well, they're just not in touch. So It's more just, don't sewer yourself early in the year. Obviously, there's worrying signs for some of these teams. Like, the Jays aren't going to go 2 for 22 with runners in scoring position all year like they were on the weekend. Vladdy isn't going to be terrible like he is to start the year. Addison Barger's better than going 1 for 19. Okamoto's going to figure things out. But yeah, the Jays are missing some starting pitching on the Jays end of disappointing starts. So that kind of sucks. But I think any baseball fan that sees their team with a record, I don't know, like, do we want to play a game? Like, who do you actually put the panic button on in terms of like playoff hopes after just 10 games? Like, I think maybe the Red Sox.
Yeah, I think Boston, I mean, to your point, you can't win a playoff spot in April, but you can definitely lose one. And the AL wildcard this year is going to be, I think, a bloodbath, because the Astros so far have looked better than I expected. The Mariners are going to be there. My pick for the AL West was the Rangers. So that's 2.5 teams probably coming out of the West. You've got to figure the Central is maybe just one team, whoever wins that division. But the Royals and Guardians could both definitely be in the hunt. I mean, they had 3 representatives last year in the playoffs, with the Tigers obviously there as well. And then you've got, an Orioles team I'm high on, a Blue Jays team that will come good, a Yankees team that started 7-2. Like, there's not enough spots really from Boston to get too far back, I don't think. 2-8 early is not a great start.
And it's the way they've lost them. Like, they haven't had any. It's like you try to find some positives, right? Like, they haven't really clicked anything together. I agree that if you're a Red Sox fan, you are concerned. 2-8 is a bad start. I mean, the Jays lost to some teams you don't want to lose. They've lost 5 in a row, but I don't think you click the panic until you are like 6 games under 500, maybe 5. If you're 5 games or more under 500 in April, maybe that's when you click the panic button. Like, what's the trigger?
I think as well, though, it's like, have you got guys coming back? Is this as good as it gets? For the Jays, we know, for example, that that's not the case. Boston doesn't have anyone of note on the IL right now. Like, this is their full rotation. This is their like best lineup on paper, just about. And they're 2-8 then. So where's the upside coming from, as opposed to Toronto's going to have a whole new rotation in 4 weeks' time. So it's a lot easier to kind of bin the last month.
Well, with Boston, I think so many of the moves that they've made the last 2 years just haven't made any sense. It seems like every move that they had made has been they've sold it as a long-term move, but then so many of those guys that they have acquired for big talent, they just let walk. So so much of what they've done just doesn't make any sense. So if you're a fan of that fan base, you're sitting there going, well, what are we moving toward here? Like, what is the goal of what we're actually doing? And is Boston maybe clamoring back a little bit, heading toward a CBA? Who knows? But you just look at so many head-scratching decisions that they've made in their front office in the last couple of years. And if you're a fan of that team, I feel like you would just be so confused because you're like, well, we've made big moves. We've come out and we've said big things. We've given guys contracts, but then not given guys contracts because of the clauses they wanted in them and let them walk, even though we traded big names for those guys. It just doesn't make any sense. So I would think it would be super frustrating for that fan base, even after a week and a half, to just look back at what's happened just from a front office standpoint, not even on the field, to see what's happened in that front office the last year and a half, to now see what they're producing on the field. And you would just be like, what are we doing?
It's and the frustrating thing is they were so excited because they saw all these Red Sox dudes go crazy in the World Baseball Classic. Like, everybody was hitting homers, and now they just they can't get anything going. It would be, man.
But like the scary part for baseball, I think, 6 months ago, Rosie, maybe 8 months ago, we were praising the Red Sox for how they've come out and extended all these young guys really early. They did it with Roman Anthony. They did it with Bayo. I think they did it with a couple of other guys. I don't think it's great for baseball if these guys don't pan out and all of a sudden teams around the league go, let's wait until they prove it. And then, pay them when they're 27 years old hitting free agency, because the new approach was fun and I think good for the league from a, impartial standpoint. I don't love it if the guys that they took a flyer on all don't pan out.
Well, we talked about that at the time, right? Because, you think about how it's happened with Christian Campbell, for instance. Like we said, even I think whenever they signed him to that $50 million deal when he had just come up and was just playing okay, that we're like, you kind of just hope 2 out of every 3 of these guys pan out. But the more that it plays out, you do start to think, well, if you've got a guy in the books at $50 or $60 million over the next X amount of years, it is hamstringing you in terms of what you can do. And I'm actually surprised that we're seeing so many teams still doing it. Cooper Pratt for the Brewers, that was reportedly $50 million over 8 years. Cole Griffin and the Mariners, $100 million over 8. Like, they're already talking about extending Connor Griffin for 9 years, and he just debuted earlier in the week. So it doesn't seem like teams are, it doesn't seem like they're getting spooked based on what's happening to Boston. Maybe all these guys for Boston, the way that they're doing it will pan out. It's more so just those decisions where it's like, well, we're trading Devers because he doesn't want to play this position, and then we're bringing Bregman in because he's our guy, but then we're not going to sign Bregman because of a clause that he wants in his contract. So for me, it's more so about the high-end guys and the upper echelon guys that they're not retaining, more so than, the guys that they're giving what are considerable contracts for players that aren't proven. It's certainly a strange approach, and if it doesn't play out, that's a fan base that I think is going to be in a lot of strife for quite a bit of time.
I guess for every Christian Campbell as well, you've got a Ronald Acuna Jr. or a Corbin Carroll where, you've got these guys on like incredible like team-friendly deals. And I think, to your point, 2 out of 3 working out. It's probably even 1 in 3 working out if you're securing a guy who, he could go get $30 million a year when he hits free agency, but you've locked him in at 10. The alarm bells are probably ringing though when you're hitting 0 out of 3, which on paper it looks like they might be right now.
And you just touched on him there, so I do want to speak about him, is San Francisco. You obviously weren't high on the Padres. You thought maybe the Giants had a better chance than the Padres did of getting to the playoffs. We talked about it in your league winners preview before the season started, just how close that second spot could be between the D-backs, the Padres, and the Giants. I think the main worry for San Francisco at the moment is that they had the ability to start at home, and they just didn't fire. To win 1 game in an 8-game homestand to begin the season for me was quite disappointed. They did go on the road and take 2 of 3, but are you sounding any sort of panic button for San Francisco, especially with, this experiment, we'll call it, of Buster Posey deciding to go get a college manager who's never been a professional manager. And if that goes poorly early, all of a sudden you have a team full of guys that are just like, who's this guy leading us around the park? Because it could look in the same way as we're talking about Boston, the way that they're structuring these contracts, the way that the Giants have structured themselves managerially and started so poorly, for me, is certainly something to track.
Yeah, I think there's a few things for me where the vibes are off. I mean, last week, Matt Chapman made a throw to first base. Whoever was on first dropped it, and he screamed at him, catch the effing ball. Yesterday, you had the Giants manager get ejected, coming out trying to fire the guys up, and then the very next half inning, they gave up 5 runs or something like that. I saw Devers just smash his bat yesterday when he struck out. And I think you've got guys like Logan Webb who have maybe just got a little bit too much mileage on that arm now because he hasn't come back looking as sharp as he has in the past, but he's also pitched, over 200 innings a season for a long time. And there's not a heap of like young, exciting talent on that team where I'm like, okay, these guys could spark everything into place. You've got a bunch of veterans who are expecting to win, and when they're not, they might start thinking about other options.
We do have a few tips that Spoon wants to get into, but before we do that, I want to flip the script and talk about some of the positives that we've seen in the early part of the season. Look, I spent a lot of the weekend jumping around MLB TV and watching teams that I didn't think that I would find myself watching. Like I watched, I think, 2 full games of that Rangers-Reds series. It was actually quite good. Two pretty competitive games. I mean, the Rangers completely failed to fire on a couple of occasions, but I was sort of buoyed by what I saw from Cincinnati. But one team that I find myself coming back and watching night after night, which I never imagined would happen, is the Pittsburgh Pirates. Are the Pirates fun?
They're fun until the ball gets hit in the outfield, I think. There was another one today where O'Neal Cruz and Brian Reynolds looked at each other as it bounced over the wall. It's pretty rough out there, but the pitching's really fun, and there's speed on the bases as well, which makes for a good product.
Yeah, they're pitching well, right? And even that series versus the Reds not long ago was pretty fun too. But I kind of want to see how they go in their next stretch. I think they've got the Padres and the Cubs, the Pirates. I was looking early, so that'll be a good little measuring stick for them early in the season. They are pretty fun, though. I think they absolutely are, and the Reds are fun too. They're well coached, man. They got maybe the best manager in the league that gets a lot out of his players. So they're pretty fun. The Reds, that is, are fun too.
Well, and really the NL Central, which, Spoon touched on it there, we kind of just breezed through whenever we were previewing the season, just thinking that it was a laydown was there, that the Cubs would win it. That could potentially be a fun division. St. Louis is at 500. The Cubs are the only team below 500. The Cardinals should be above 500. They were leading late in that game, and the bullpen gave it up to Spoon's Washington Nationals. But it feels like once those teams all start to play each other, that we are going to have kind of some fun matchups in the NL Central, which is not something that I was expecting that we would be saying a couple weeks into the baseball season.
I think the Cubs, what scares me with the Cubs, I'm not sure that rotation's stacking up well at all. And where the Brewers are going to have a lot of strength is that it will, with Mizorowski, Woodruff, a lot of guys just going out and getting it done. A rotation of Cabrera, Imanaga, Boyd, Horton's gone to the IL, Tyone. This is a team that's probably hoping to get it done with the bat, and they are a deep batting lineup. I think PCA is down to batting 6 or 7 now in that lineup, which speaks to where they're at. But a rotation like that, where you can't say, 2 or 3 out of the next 5 games, we're going to have an advantage because our starter is the guy. And you're trying to compete in the division with the Brewers, who do have a couple of those guys. I think it's probably a little bit concerning without being panic stations like it is for Boston.
Yeah, we've just never, at least for a few years, haven't been able to talk about that division in the context of looking up and down. And again, a short sample size. That's always the caveat this time of year. But looking at teams like the Pirates and Reds and going, those are teams that you don't necessarily want to run into for the reasons that we've discussed. There's no, Colorado Rockies type team sitting in that division, at least from the way that it feels currently. So, yeah, the National League Central maybe will be a bit of a surprise as the season pans out. Well, we'll step aside for a moment. Spoon has a couple of late Easter presents for those of you that want to stick around, and a couple of tips. We'll get to those on the other side. Stay with us. back on the expats and trying to make you a couple of bucks with your baseball viewing during the week. Spoon's got a couple of plays for the Wednesday slate in Australia, the Tuesday slate in the United States. And we're going to the Cincinnati-Miami matchup for your first play tomorrow, Spoon.
Dreamy.
Yeah, I'm really keen to watch Sandy again tomorrow. I had him for his opening day start, I think 6 strikeouts, and he got 5, and he was almost too efficient because he pitched 7 clean innings, and ultimately, with a pitch count in the mid-70s, was pulled 1 strikeout off. He then backed it up with a complete game shutout last start and looked nasty doing so. He's now gone 16 innings without surrendering an earned run and looks unreal. We know the strikeout stuff can be there, and we know the Reds are a team that will swing and miss. They were 23rd as of this morning on strikeout rate, which is kind of in line with where they've been in recent seasons. They've always been worse on the road in the strikeout department as well. So you're getting $1.84 for Sandy to get 6 strikeouts, and given the way he's looked so far, he's giving you 6 or 7 innings, and you just need a strikeout per. He doesn't leave you in that spot where you need to get like 2 or 3 in an inning to be ahead of the inning mark. Like a lot of guys, if you're taking sort of 7 or 8 strikeouts with a crochet or a Scooble, like you need those multi-strikeout frames. Sandy's set up well tomorrow to just keep chipping away one at a time against a lineup that will swing and miss. So give me Sandy 6 or more strikeouts at $1.84 and a little bit on 8 or more at $4.25 in case he does have one of those frames where he strikes out 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's a fun play, and as I've said many times on the show, and will continue to say, any excuse to watch Sandy pitch, particularly on a Wednesday morning, is, I mean, you don't need it. You don't need an excuse, but you might as well give yourself one. So Sandy Alcantara 6+ at $1.84, and then the top up at 8+ at $4.25. Going a bit more mainstream for your second play for the World Series rematch, a game that did not go well for the Blue Jays today, where Scherzer going just the 2 innings, but Game 2 of that series, Jays and Dodgers, is where we're going for your second pick.
Yeah, I think to use a horse racing expression, today and probably the last week for Toronto has been too bad to be true. And I'm willing to forgive it because I think it's now crazy that you're seeing a team with their ace, who has been terrific, on the mound tomorrow at $2.30. Yes, the Dodgers have their ace out there too, and we know how good he was in the World Series and was World Series MVP ultimately. But I think it seems a little bit too reactionary. Kevin Gausman has 21 strikeouts in 12 innings. That is just madness. And he's allowed 1 earned run in that time. So for me, when I look at a game like tomorrow, it only goes one way. If Gausman pitches well, the Blue Jays are a chance. If he doesn't, they're 0 chance. I mean, we saw today, Scherzer left early. The game got ugly really quickly. And this is a bullpen that has been taxed. So the Blue Jays need 6, 7 innings from Gausman tomorrow. If he doesn't give them, then they should be 100-1 anyway. But the way I want to play it is Gausman to have 7 or more strikeouts, Blue Jays to win $3.60, because I feel you're effectively getting $3.60 about a bet that's $2.30. And I already think it shouldn't be $2.30. I think it should probably be $1.90 each. So you're almost getting double value there for, thinking along the lines of if Gausman can't go 7, the Jays can't win. If Gausman does go 7, he picks up 7 strikeouts, given he's getting almost 2 per inning as we speak, and has been consistently able to get that 7+ mark. So I think that's a really nice play at $3.60.
I like it, and I like the optimism. I mean, the Jays got to win a game at some point. Tomorrow, definitely.
Is it 5 in a row?
5 in a row and 6 of 7.
So it's almost a little avalanche strategy as well, where, this streak has to be broken. I feel like the stars align tomorrow, $3.60. I was expecting to get high 2s when I kind of, I like to price up a play before I see what it is, because then I can decide if it's value or not. So to get $3.60 about that, I thought was great.
Yeah. And at last check, I mean, something you didn't even mention, I mean, the Dodgers are playing really well, but they are striking out more than any other team in baseball, right? So the strikeout play makes even more sense when you think, I mean, they've struck out 118 times in their first 11 games, second only to the Seattle Mariners, which probably are, 2 of the top 3 teams in the bottom in terms to get to a World Series.
20 more ABs than every other team.
Yeah, in terms of looking at runs scored, I think they not necessarily as high as you would think they are, but hits and OPS in terms of the teams. I mean, they are getting on base, obviously, because they're winning games, but they are striking out a lot more than any other team in baseball. So the gas man, 7 or more strikeouts, and Spoon thinking if he gets to that point, the Jays are a chance to win. So couple in the Jays win at $3.60 and go Blue Jays.
Go Jays,
go.
go Fish, go Cards, go D-backs, go Nats. Jeez, the list is getting long. I got to stop adopting 2 teams every season.
We're a fan of every team but one here on the Baseball Expats. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the pod. We will be back later in the week for more shenanigans with the weekend pickoff. Do visit us at baseballexpats.com and tell a friend. It's the best way for us to grow. But until later in the week, enjoy your week, enjoy your baseball. Bye, everybody.